Father Barnabas Powell is pastor of Saints Raphael, Nicholas, and Irene, Greek Orthodox Church of Cumming, Georgia, USA. Here's Father Barnabas with Sunday's homily.
I'm so grateful to God that you're here today as we celebrate St. Philip. And we hear this very familiar story of the Good Samaritan that you've heard all your life. In fact, that story is so familiar to you, it runs the risk of disappearing into the white noise of your life. And yet we're confronted this morning with this passage again. Most of you know that in one of my former lives, I've had, seems like several. I always tell people that I started out as a police officer, then a pastor, now a priest. The next step is parolee, but I'm trying to avoid that one. But in my police officer days, we police officers were just infuriated by the notion of people getting off on a technicality. We hated it. He got off on a technicality. I never forget I was on the DUI task force, and this guy came before the judge, and I was on the road working a traffic accident, and they called me and said, "Hey, this guy's coming before the judge. It's your case. You got to get here." So I said, "Okay, well, send me somebody else here to take the report." And sure enough, they sent somebody as quick as they could. And so I got over to the courthouse as quick as I could and walked in. And as I was walking in, the judge was letting the guy go because I wasn't there at the court as fast as he wanted me there. DUI guy just walks out free. Defense lawyer did a good job. But I was furious. And I told the bailiff, I said, when that judge comes off that bench, he has an appointment to see me. And we had a short prayer meeting. And to his credit, he apologized. I still don't put this guy where he needs to be, but regardless. So we were always ticked off about people getting off on a technicality. And yet, if I'm honest, and sometimes I really try to be, if I'm honest, most of my life I've spent wanting to work the system. See if I can get some preferential treatment. See if I can get special treatment. Oh, the deadline's passed? Well, I mean, come on. I mean, it's me. Can't you just fudge it a little bit for me? It's amazing how quick, when it benefits me, that I'm very willing to see if I can't get a little fudge in the system a little bit. Get a little preferential treatment. I love preferential treatment. But the reality is, I don't like it when other people get preferential treatment because in my heart of hearts, I'm aggravated because it wasn't me. And now, I know maybe you may not be able to relate to that, but and yet most of my life, and perhaps maybe yours as well, one of the things we've struggled with in our lives is struggling, why have faith? Why have faith? Why are you a Christian? Happy accident of your birth? You're just born in America and everybody else is Christian? If you'd have born in India, you'd have been a Hindu? Is that what's going on here? Why do you believe? Why do you have faith? Perhaps I should step back a little further. Do you have faith? I got to confess, sometimes my answer to that question is, maybe. I'd like to have faith. But what's the purpose of the faith? What's the purpose of you coming to church? Habit? Good habit, A+. Good for you. Gold star. That's a good habit. But why come to church? Why pray? Why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, trust me, increasingly Americans in this country are opting out of this whole system altogether. Though it is fascinating to me that something has occurred, that has happened in this society that is kind of amazing to me. The people who are spiritual but not religious. I confess to you, I'm old enough that makes I need Pepto-Bismol. I'm just going to be honest with you. You're spiritual but not religious. I never forget one lady told me, she says, "Well, I believe, but I don't worship." Well then, sweetheart, with all due respect, honey, you don't believe. You don't. You may give mental assent to certain ideas that you think are good. The vast majority of Americans, though, haven't opted out of believing in God. They still believe in God, but for the vast majority of Americans and for the vast majority of those of us in this society, we don't know why. Why do we believe? Why are we followers of Jesus Christ? Now, in my earlier days, I would have answered that question by saying, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to go to hell. I mean, come on, who does? Everybody that says they want to go to hell, once they get there, they realize the second they're there, I've made a serious error. I don't want to go to hell. I never will forget, in my earlier days, I genuinely believed that God the Father was knocking at my heart's door saying, please let me in, please let me in. And if I were to have said, why should I let you in? Because if you don't let me in, I'm going to burn you. Oh, well, I better open the door then. My motivation for faith was fear for myself. I didn't want to get punished. Nobody does. But as I began to mature in the faith, I began to confront this timeless orthodox answer for why believe. Because, brothers and sisters, true belief, true faith rescues me from twin slaveries of a life lived asleep to reality or a life lived constantly trying to justify my behavior. A life lived asleep to the reality of God and His purpose for my life. I would say that the vast majority of us live as functional agnostics, maybe even functional atheists. Oh, we certainly say we believe, and yet when it comes to the daily practice of our life, our actions and choices betray our hypocrisy. Look at the gospel lesson today. You're talking about being asleep. This guy, this lawyer, those lawyers. You know the joke, don't you? You know the joke. No, I'm not going to tell that joke. Never mind. It's an old police joke about lawyers. We were always very mean to those guys. I apologize. Forgive me. This lawyer wants to test Jesus. He wants to test the new rabbi, the teacher. He wants to give the priest, the preacher, a hard time. None of you know anything about that at all. And he tests Jesus by saying, how do I inherit eternal life? Jesus, of course, being the good Jewish rabbi, I always expect him to say Meshuggah, but he doesn't. That's before that part of the language was around. But Jesus looks at him and answers the question with a question, which if any teacher tells you anything, they always tell you, don't answer a question with a question. Jesus does. Says, well, puts it right back on him. What do you read? How does it read to you? I mean, you're a lawyer. You know how to read. What do the Scriptures say? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus says, you got it. Do that, you'll live. Oh, but who's my neighbor? Looking for a loophole. And then Jesus, of course, tells the famous story. Even though that man was steeped in the traditions of the church his whole life, of the Jewish faith his whole life, he was asleep to the twin slaveries of his inattentiveness and his desire to justify himself. Because of that, his motives were poisoned by self-centeredness. I confess to you, many times I catch myself not asking the question, why do I do what I do? Why do I have faith? Why did I become a priest? Why are you Orthodox? Why? Is it because you've actually pressed in and learned the faith so that you can live the faith every day? I confess to you, folks, it's just not the case for many of us. It wasn't the case for me for years, and it's still not the case for me when I find myself being lulled to sleep by a society where it is easier to go with the flow than it is to actually press out the implications of the gospel. Who is my neighbor? You're my neighbor. The crushing temptation to sing the Mr. Rogers song is huge right now. But I won't do it. Well, won't you? Never mind. No. The purpose of the faith, ladies and gentlemen, is to transfigure your behavior and your life. The purpose of the faith is to change you, not to make you happy, not to make you comfortable, not to give you a cup of warm milk when you want a little pat on the head. The purpose of the faith is to confront you with the person of Jesus Christ and says to you, this is who you're supposed to be like. Don't stop until you are. The purpose of the rhythm of the faith, the purpose of the prayers, the purpose of the liturgy, the purpose of the fasting, the purpose of the memorials, the purpose of everything we do, candles and incense and all that we do, all of the rhythm of services, is to constantly bring you to that proskomen moment. Tisimini proskomen. Attention! That attentive moment in your life where you wake up to the confrontation that you are to have with God, so that being with God will be considered wonderful instead of torment. Because our God is a consuming fire. And you will not escape the moment of destiny where you will be in the unfiltered presence of God for eternity. And what you choose today in this life, how you set your priorities and how you allow the faith to shape you and mold you and form you, will determine whether you call where you are heaven or hell. But make no mistake, my angels, it's in your hands to embrace this fire. No wonder the church teaches us to pray over and over again, Kyrie eleison, Lord have mercy. But I need to stay awake. I need to stay attentive. And I need to avoid the self-centered, arrogant, undeserved pride of constantly trying to justify my behaviors, that I'm not as bad as that person, or I didn't do that. To avoid that temptation, that slavery that locks me away in a prideful delusion that somehow I don't need to be changed. I do. I need to be changed. I need to be confronted with who is my neighbor. I need to be told that no matter how religious I might be, I'm constantly in need of the mercy and the grace of God to make me by grace what Christ is by nature. This morning, are you free from these twin slaveries of an inattentive life, living life on automatic pilot, or that slavery of self-justification? Have you caught yourself doing that? I know I do. This morning you can be free. And it will be as if it will be when you love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and you love your neighbor as yourself. Then you'll live. Amen.
You can follow Father Barnabas on YouTube or on our church website at stsrni.org. Thank you for watching.